few people. Make somebody feel welcomed here at church today. We're so happy that you're here. Welcome to Pathway. Welcome to church. Happy Resurrection Sunday.
Happy Resurrection Day, Pathway. Man, happy Easter. We're so glad that you're here. Thank you so much for coming. If you're new, welcome. We're so honored that you wanted to spend the resurrection of Jesus Easter Sunday with us. And my name is Brian. I'm the pastor. And at Pathway, we simply want to help you to know God, to find family, and to make a difference. That's what we're all about as a church. And man, again, thank you so much for coming and being with us. And happy Easter, happy resurrection of Jesus. And we encourage you to come back next week. Don't just be one and done, all right? I want to see you next week, okay? And here's the thing. Come back next week because it's Baptism Sunday. That is an exciting day. And we've already had several people signed up for all three services, so we encourage you, please come back and celebrate with them the life change through Jesus of these people. And maybe you would like to be baptized as well. We'll give you some more information closer to the end today of how you can do that. We would be honored to be part of that, to celebrate that with you. But man, thank you so much again for choosing to be here today. You know, speaking of choices, we all have choices, big choices, small choices. And those choices over time have sometimes big ramifications, sometimes small. This morning I had a choice. I was greeted this morning before I came here. This is not my first stop on a Sunday morning, believe it or not. For the last Pathway is going to be 9 years old in September. So for the past almost 9 years, I have a stop that I make on my way, whether we've been at the high school, the park, or the movie theater, or here. And it's my favorite stop. I look forward to it all week. I look forward to seeing you, but I also look forward to this on Sundays, the only day a week I do it. And I walked into this establishment, and this is how I was greeted. And I just want to tell you something. If I could be greeted this way every single day the rest of my life, I would die a happy man. I walk in, and they looked right at me, and they said, "Hey, good morning, Brian. Would you like 4 donuts today or just 3? And I'm like, you could just greet me that way the rest of my life, and I'd be happy, And I had a choice. I'm like, well, that's a conundrum. I do 4. I usually do 3. But I'm like, Jesus is alive, and so am I. Let's do 4 today. And bless God, give me 4 donuts. So now here's the other thing. Because I made that choice, not too long from now, like tomorrow morning, that little donut is going to get part of this big donut going on right here. And then I got another choice to make. What do I do with that? And I'm working on that choice. But we all have choices. And when we think about the death and resurrection of Jesus, it was one singular event. But when you look at one particular scene, as it were, there were multiple people involved. One event, multiple people, and they all had a choice. And that's what I want to look at today, this one event, and really through the lens of all 4 different groups that were involved. And it's the trial of Jesus. So Jesus had many, many trials. He had many trials, and they were all a sham. They were all what we would say a kangaroo court. They were false, and they all happened one after the other, and all throughout the night, early the next morning. And we're going to eavesdrop on the last trial Jesus has, and it's in the New Testament of the Bible. The Bible has New and Old Testament. And in the New Testament, there's the first 4 books called the Gospels, which is about the life of Jesus. We're going to look at the second of the Gospels, Mark. It's named Mark because he's the guy that wrote it. He was an early follower of Jesus. And in Mark chapter 15, verse 6 says this. Now, it was the governor's custom each year during the Passover celebration to release one prisoner, anyone the people requested. One of the prisoners at that time was Barabbas, a revolutionary who had committed murder in an uprising. The crowd went to Pilate and asked him to release the prisoner as usual. "Would you like me to release to you this king of the Jews?" Pilate asked, for he realized by now that the leading priests had arrested Jesus out of envy. But at this point, the leading priests stirred up the crowd to demand the release of Barabbas instead of Jesus. Pilate asked them, "Then what should I do with this man that you call the king of the Jews?" They shouted back, "Crucify him!" "Why?" Pilate demanded. "What crime has he committed?" But the mob roared even louder, "Crucify him!" So to pacify the crowd, Pilate released Barabbas to them. He ordered Jesus flogged with a lead-tipped whip. Then he turned him over to the Roman soldiers to be crucified. Now, as we look at this, again, there's four groups involved here. There's one group, three people. And I want to look at this last trial of Jesus through the eyes of all four of them. And I think this, if I could summarize this short passage, really kind of the main thought is, and that'd be this: you got to choose wisely. It was one event, and everybody in the event had a choice. Every person, part of it, had the same choice. And we're going to look at through the eyes of each of them. And I think the first one I want to look at is the crowd. Because notice in verse 11, but at this point, the leading priest stirred up the crowd to demand the release of Barabbas instead of Jesus. It was the leading priest, which tells you got to watch out for church people, all right? Especially pastors, to be honest with you. You got to watch out for religious people because they are the ones stirring up the crowd. And it's not all the religious leaders. It's just probably a handful of them. And there's a crowd that day. And I really doubt that crowd woke up that day thinking, today we're gonna see somebody crucified. They didn't wake up that way. They woke up thinking, are we going to have 4 donuts today or 3? No, I don't know. But they woke up not thinking about a murder, someone on a cross. And yet they get to a particular part in the city of Jerusalem, and there's religious leaders there, and they begin to stir them up. So much so that now the crowd, they're not even thinking for themselves. They're being influenced by the religious leaders. You got to be careful the crowd that you're listening to. Because if you're not careful, that crowd will get you so stirred up that you lose sleep at night because you're so stressed. That crowd gets you so worked up that no wonder you're anxious and stressed. And it could be the crowd at work, and what are we going to do about the merger? And what are we going to do about the shutting down the plant? And it could be the crowd in your own home, and there's disunity in your home. And it could be the crowd of MSN Now or CNN or Fox News or social media influencers, YouTubers. And they get you so stirred up about something that you can't even think straight. In fact, you're not even thinking for yourself. You're really regurgitating what they're telling you to say. That's the case with this crowd. They're not even having original thoughts. They're demanding what the religious people told them to say. And if you're not careful, the crowd will get you so worked up when you're not even thinking for yourself that you won't even listen to reason or solid evidence. Because notice, Pilate said many times, Jesus is innocent. He's innocent. But the crowd is so worked up, they won't even listen to reason or evidence. They don't even care about the truth. I mean, I think you got to be careful with the crowd that you're listening to. We got to be careful because the crowd of our culture. The crowd of culture will say, hey, you Christians don't believe in that, and you got to compromise. And if you're not careful, you give in to that. And you compromise with the crowd of culture, which always leads to chaos. The crowd chose the one who took life over the one who gave life. The crowd that day, Jesus is the one who gives life. Barabbas is a murderer. He took life. When you're not careful who you listen to, the culture will get you so worked up, so stirred up. And notice this, by the way. Notice the words, because we read it. They went from being called a crowd a couple of times to then it finally referred to them as an angry mob. You get so fired up that you don't even care about truth. That's what the crowd will do. The crowd will always lead to chaos. The crowd of culture today is still offended by Jesus. The crowd of not just American culture, but all cultures are offended by Christ. They're offended by the cross. They're offended by his resurrection. They're offended by what we're doing here today. And maybe that's you. In fact, I would say this, the first group, the crowd, is the person that would say, I don't care about Jesus. I don't believe in Jesus. I don't care what evidence you can show me. I don't care that there is historical proof that there was a guy, Jesus of Nazareth, that really lived, that really died, that probably really rose again. I don't care about any of it. I'm not going to believe. I'm so obstinate. I won't believe a word you tell me. I don't even care. I pray that that's not your heart. I beg for your sake, for eternity's sake, that's not your heart. But the reality is there are people like that. They're so worked up in the crowd and their own political motivations that they won't even listen to truth when it's presented to them. Is that you? You reject Jesus at all costs. Look at the second one. Pilate. You know, today, if you were to ask people, why did Jesus die? And hopefully Christians could give you a pretty good answer. I mean, I hope that at least you come to Pathway, you better have a good answer for that, right? But for Pilate, Jesus died for one reason, not forgiveness of his sins. Pilate, the Bible tells us in Mark 15 explicitly why Pilate died. Why Pilate had Jesus die. And it wasn't because he believed he was the Messiah. He's making fun of that claim. It's simply because, verse 15, to pacify who? The crowd. In other words, think about this. I want you to really slow down and look at this dichotomy. Pilate has just declared, he is the law of the land. And he has just declared Jesus is innocent 2 different times. In fact, other trials, every trial he had, he was innocent, proven innocent. Pilate is the Supreme Court, the one guy that can set him free or condemn him. Pilate is to be the representation of true justice. He was the final authority. The buck stopped with him, we would say. Pilate is supposed to be the picture of justice, and yet here he is perverting justice. Have you ever been wronged by a court system or a lawyer or by other people, stabbed in the back, and you're like, that's not justice, that's a perversion of justice? That's what's going on here. Pilate has just declared Jesus innocent 2 different times, and yet Pilate still says, let him be crucified. Why? To make them happy. Instead of standing on the side of truth, that I know it may be offensive to the mob. I know you may get mad at me and yell at me and call me all kinds of names. You may storm my house and burn it to the ground. But I would rather stand on the side of truth than give in to the changing culture of the crowd. But that's not Pilate. Pilate is like, I know what truth is because I know this guy's innocent. But I will distort and twist the truth to make the crowd happy. There's people like that today. People who say, I believe in Christianity to a point. I mean, I do believe, unlike the crowd, I mean, I am not the crowd. I do believe Jesus was probably real. I come to church a few times and a year, and I believe some of the stuff. But, you know, Brian, honestly, some of the stuff in Christianity is offensive to our American culture. And, man, I don't want to offend people. That's not what Jesus is about, offending. I don't want to offend them, and I'll just kind of, you know, peace, love, and happiness stuff. And if you're not careful to pacify the crowd in your life, you'll begin to twist and bend the truth. No, rather to say, I will stand on the side of truth when it's popular and when it's not. When everybody loves me and when I get no followers. When I get deplatformed, whatever. But I will stand on the side of truth no matter what. No matter what, if it's popular or not. Pilate is wish-washing. Here's the problem. When you follow the crowd, it leads to destruction. They pervert justice. In fact, for Pilate, unfortunately, whenever you follow the crowd, it will always lead to your demise, every single time. For Pilate, we know through a historian named Eusebius that writes a few years later that the trial of Jesus happened around 33 AD, somewhere in there. Eusebius says this, that in 36 AD, so 3 years after this event we're reading about, Pilate was ordered back to Rome to stand trial himself for cruelty and oppression, particularly on the primary charge that he had executed men without a proper trial. And if that's not enough, we know a few years after that, Pilate committed suicide on the orders of the Emperor Caligula. Anytime you follow the crowd, thinking, if I make the crowd happy, that's the only reason that Jesus died in Pilate's mind. He's not the Messiah, not the Son of God, not forgiveness of sins. I don't care about any of that. Pilate, I got to make them happy. And every time you give into the crowd and make the crowd happy, the crowd will devour you and they'll eat you alive and they'll destroy you. Why? Because they don't care about you. They only care about them. That's the crowd. The crowd says, if you want to be part of our mom's group, you need to go where we get our hair done and our nails done and our lashes done and all the other stuff. And if you want to be part of our mom's group, you got to drive the car we drive. And if you want to be accepted in our group, you need to make about the same amount of money, and you got to live in our neighborhood, and your kids need to be really good at sports like our kids. And if you really want to be accepted, some of that stuff of Christianity is okay, but some of it's offensive. And so if you want to be accepted in our crowd, you need to compromise some stuff. And every time that you do that, it'll destroy you every time, because they don't care about you. That's the truth. What if the thing that you think when you choose freedom, it's really choosing your demise? Pilate that day thought, I'm choosing freedom. By choosing to make the crowd happy, I'll be free. They'll kind of get off my back. They'll stop breathing down my neck. That'll calm everything down. Everything will simmer down. Everything will be happy. But the moment he did that, he was sealing his own fate. What if the thing that you are choosing right now, this will bring me freedom, this will bring me fulfillment, this will bring me happiness and peace and purpose? What if that's the thing that you choose will actually undo you in the end? Just like Pilate. Pilate is the type of person that is honestly, let's just, again, pretty clearly here, he's indifferent towards Jesus. The crowd is the one that's just, they're so obstinate they don't care. I hope that's none of you. The other group, though, I think this is honestly the majority of Americans, to be quite honest. We have a great country, but I think a lot of Christians are here, a lot of people are here, where they're somewhat indifferent. They do believe a lot of this in the Bible, that it is true, just like Pilate. Pilate believed Jesus was true and innocent, but not enough to make a life-changing decision. And we come to church a couple times a year. We may sort of throw up a few big ones to the man upstairs. We may read a few Bible verses when life is really hard, and we may reach out and have somebody. But at the end of the day, I'll do that enough, but not enough to stand up for the truth when it's inconvenient. I'll do that as long as I need it, but not enough to stand for the truth no matter what. I'm just kind of indifferent. That's Pilate. And then look at the third person, Barabbas. Verse 7, one of the prisoners at that time was Barabbas, a revolutionary who had committed murder in an uprising. That tells you Barabbas is one of the, Jesus talks a little bit before, a little after. In this scene, he's not, but Barabbas is the only figure that doesn't talk. But by that one sentence, we have all we need to know about him. He's a revolutionary. Well, think of what that word means. That's what he is. He's an insurrectionist. And the crowd thought he was a hero because Barabbas is the guy that's going to overthrow Rome. They hate Rome. The Jews hated Rome, and the Romans hate the Jews equally. And so Barabbas is a guy who, in a military uprising, he got a militia together, got some swords, some spears, some daggers, got them together, and went out and threw a revolt, because that's what it says, a revolt. And in that uprising, someone was murdered, most likely a Roman soldier, most likely. Because they're not going to murder other Jews because they're all on the same team. They want to kill Romans. And so Pilate, Barabbas is the guy that says, I'll do it myself. You got to be careful of the crowd. This is the same group of people, part of them, that about 5 days earlier were shouting at Jesus, Hosanna, which literally means save us now. And they're not meaning the way we think of save me of my sins, save me to you, save me from hell. They don't mean that. They mean save us now from Rome. Save us from the bad guys. Save us from the Roman soldiers. Save us from Pilate. And now, instead of Jesus overthrowing Rome, Rome is overthrowing him. And so what does the crowd do? They're so fickle, they turn. That's why the crowd, they don't care about you. They just do what suits them. They're selfish. And if you don't fulfill what the crowd wants you to do, they'll turn on you too, just like they did here. And so now the same group that was saying, save us, Jesus, now they're saying, kill him. Kill him. Why? Because we wanted him to overthrow Rome. He didn't do it. Now give us Barabbas instead. Barabbas has proved that he can do. Jesus, you ain't getting the job done. Barabbas, you've already proved it because you've already killed Roman soldiers. You can do it again. We would rather have you than this innocent man. Barabbas is the person that says, I've been frustrated with God. I tried Christianity, I tried the church thing, Brian, and I still got a divorce. I still got cancer. My kids still don't talk to me. I'm still broke. I tried God, and he didn't answer my prayer when I needed him to, and the deadline passed, and man, it was a catastrophe in my life. And so you know what? I just realized I don't need God. I'll do it myself. In other words, I'll save myself. That's the idea of Barabbas. We don't need Jesus to overthrow Rome. We can do it ourselves. Here's the problem. Every single Jewish revolt against Rome, every one of them, was utterly crushed by Rome in the end. Every one of them. There was not one successful one. So much so that the final revolt, not too long after this, in 70 AD, was so bad that the Jews completely, or the Romans destroyed the temple. They literally kicked all the Jews out forever. Could never come back, just until 1948 when they came back in one day. 2,000 years kicked them out. The revolt never ended well. In fact, in that revolt in 70 AD, the Jews were hiding in the sewage of the city streets over some, so we call man covers. They had stones, and the Romans found out, and they would crush the stones on top of them. When you give in to the crowd, when you think you can do it yourself, it'll destroy you. What's interesting is Jesus never offered to overthrow Rome, not one time. Jesus never said, yeah, that's right, guys, get your swords, spears, pitchforks, we're going to go storm the gates. Jesus never said that. He said, I didn't come to overthrow Rome, but I did come to overthrow sin. Now, why does that matter? Because what they didn't understand, they couldn't connect the dots in their brain that I hope you can connect, was that they are thinking, save me now from my current situation. And Jesus probably would have said, I could do that, but then guess what, guys? Human history, another Rome by a different name is going to come and occupy you. And then we could overthrow them, and then another Rome. And I could get you out of the financial situation you're in, but because I've not dealt with the sin of your heart, you're going to be in this same group. I could deal with the marriage issues you have, but because I haven't dealt with your heart, you're going to be in the same thing. And all of a sudden, we are just asking God for a Band-Aid after a Band-Aid when Jesus said, I didn't come to give you a Band-Aid. I came to do heart surgery to change your heart and set you free once and from all from sin. Barabbas tried a revolution on his own power by killing others and failed. Jesus brought a revolution through his own death so that others could live. The dichotomy of the two couldn't be more contrast. Barabbas, I'll do it myself and I'll fix it, and other people have to die, but I still fail. Jesus, no one has to die but me so that you can all live. What's interesting is Barabbas is the person that says, I can do it myself. I can save myself. Thanks, but no thanks, God. If I need you, I'll call on you, but other than that, I got it. I'll save myself. You will fail. I say it in love, but you'll fail every single time. Now look at the other one, and I think here's what we do about it. You choose Jesus. Verse 15. So to pacify the crowd, Pilate released Barabbas to them. He ordered Jesus flogged with a lead-tipped whip. Then he turned him over to the Roman soldiers to be crucified. Here's what you need to know. Don't just glance over that. Again, take a step back, read the Bible slowly, think about it. This is really unique on many levels. One, Jesus is Jewish. God had given them the Old Testament law that if you committed a capital crime, the capital punishment is death by stoning. In fact, Jesus is on the charge of blasphemy, claiming he is God, by the Jewish religious leaders. So the way that he should have died, according to Jewish law, according to the Bible, the Old Testament, he should have been stoned to death. In fact, a few books from this one in Acts, another book in the New Testament, there's a guy named Stephen, and that's how he would die, the first martyr of Christianity. He was stoned to death. So by Jewish law, Jesus shouldn't have been executed on the cross, he should have been stoned to death. But on the flip side, Romans, if you were a Roman citizen, you would never be stoned to death. And it was fact, crucifixion was literally so horrific that it was outlawed if you were a Roman citizen. You could die a lot of ways, but not by crucifixion. They said it's so bad, we don't even want our citizens to die that way. And so if you were a Roman citizen, the way you were to die was to have your head chopped off. Still not fun, but at least it's a lot quicker, right? I mean, I'd take that over crucifixion or stoning any day. It's believed the Apostle Paul, who was a Roman citizen, had his head cut off. So then why was Jesus led to be crucified? He should have been stoned, couldn't have had his head cut off, because it tells you what they were doing, the severity of They were saying, stoning is not good enough. He doesn't deserve that. Give him, only crucifixion was for slaves and the worst of the worst. And they say, that's what Jesus deserves. Looking at Jesus, Barabbas deserved the death penalty because of his murder, a capital offense. And yet in this moment, he is spared. Now, I want you to think about, again, I read the Bible slowly. I put myself there as if I'm experiencing it. I want you to think about if you're Barabbas. He's only mentioned right here in all of history, by the way. So imagine you're Barabbas. You know you're guilty. You committed murder, and maybe he was even proud of it. I don't know. But you know you're guilty, and you've been arrested, and you are literally on death row. And you know that at any day, at any moment, Roman soldiers are going to bust through your cell, grab you, and take you away, probably to be crucified, because you probably killed a Roman soldier. You're the worst of the worst. They want you to suffer as long as possible for what you did. And you wake up on this Friday morning, just like you did last Friday and the week before and the month before and the year before. And you wake up in this dungeon, this dank, dark, cold cell. And your hands are shackled together with chains, and your feet are shackled together with chains. There's lice, there's maggots in your food. It is a horrible, horrible way to be in prison. And as you're in there, you're just kind of starting to wake up. You don't get breakfast. This ain't Holiday Inn where you get a continental breakfast. I mean, there's nothing. You get one meal if you're lucky. You wake up, and then all of a sudden, 2 Roman soldiers bust in your cell. And you immediately think, this is it. This is the day. I don't have time to call my mom to tell her I love her. This is it. I'm going to die today. Today is my death day. And as you realize that, I'm going to die today. Those Roman soldiers, they hate you. They despise you because you probably killed one of their own. I mean, they are most likely cussing at you. They're punching you. They're beating you. They're dragging you. You are worse than a maggot to them. I mean, you are the worst lowlife. And they don't even talk to you. And they just grab you and they begin to literally drag you through the corridors of the dungeon. And as you're walking through the corridors of the dungeon, you hear something reverberating off the hallways, the stone walls of the dungeon. And you can hear it, but you can't quite make it out. And you're kind of like, what's going on? And it's so dark in the cell, and you're kind of stumbling over your chains, and the soldiers are poking you and punching you. And you finally come to this bright opening, and you've been in the dark cell for so long, the sun just hits you in the face that you're squinting. It's so bright, you can barely see it. It's so bright. And now all of a sudden, that noise that you heard coming through the hallway of the dungeon gets louder and louder, to now it's so loud, it's a deafening cacophony of noise. And like, what is going on? Your eyes are trying to adjust, and finally they kind of adjust, and it's so loud. I mean, your ears are almost bleeding. It's so loud. And you're like, what is going on? They're here for me. They're here to watch me suffer today. They all gathered. These tens of thousands of people gathered to watch me die today. That's what's going on. And as you're standing there, you're like, let's get it over with. Yeah, I'm guilty. I did kill a Roman soldier. I'm guilty of that, and I'm going to deserve 100% what I'm about to get. There's no arguing about it. I'm not going to make excuses. I'm going to man up and own it. And as you stand there, you're off to the side of this platform, and you see a figure, and you recognize the voice before you really can make out the figure. And he's wrapped in a white robe, and you look at him and you're like, that's Pilate. That's Pontius Pilate. I killed one of his men. That's what this is. This is my execution. He's here to make sure that they get the job done. But you can barely hear what Pilate is saying because his back is to you, and he's talking to the mob. And kind of in a moment, you can kind of make out what people are saying. And Pilate is leaning over the rail to the mob below. And he says, which one, this Barabbas or this Jesus, King of the Jews? And you hadn't noticed the other guy. But you look over and you see a man standing not too far from you, maybe 5 or 6 feet. And he too is surrounded by some Roman soldiers. But you look at him and you're like, this guy, something's up with this guy. He's got literally thorns wrapped around his head. He's been beaten and punched. Maybe he killed a soldier too. I mean, I don't know what's up with the thorns on his head, but that's weird. What's going on with this guy? And then you realize, okay, Pilate, this is the one day a year, so my one shot to be free. And Pilate is giving the crowd a choice. Well, I know they're going to pick me because I'm guilty. But to your utter shock and amazement, they're chanting your name. Give us Barabbas. Give us Barabbas. And now you're like, oh my goodness, I thought they wanted me dead, but I'm a national hero. I'm a hero. And now instead of them condemning me, they celebrate me. And now there's a chance I'm going to be free today. And then Pilate, just to make sure, he already said it once, and the crowd roared back, but he says it again a second time. But I'm going to ask you again, this guy's innocent. This guy's guilty. Who do you want to be set free? And they say, Barabbas. They don't even think about it. They're so worked up, they don't even listen to reason. Give us this guy. And so you're Barabbas, you're excited, your eyes are wide now. You're like, this is the best day of my life. I literally thought I was going to wake up today and die on a cross, but instead I'm being set free. And the Roman soldiers, Pilate says, fine, but I'm going to literally wash my hands of this. This innocent man's blood is on your head now, not mine. And the moment Pilate says that, the Roman soldiers who were standing between you and this other guy, they turn over to you, to Pilate, to Barabbas, and they begin to undo your chains and your shackles. And they take the shackles right off of you, and they put them on this innocent guy. And as they put him on this guy, the soldiers take him away. And you're instantly freed. You woke up expecting death, but you were spared by an innocent man who didn't deserve it, and you know you did. And he is condemned to death while you're set free. Don't you see? That is the gospel. That is Christianity. Don't you see? You are Barabbas. I am Barabbas. Guilty of sin. Yes, don't blame your parents. Don't blame your situation. Don't blame the devil. It is you. You are guilty of sin. Every human that has ever lived is guilty of sin. But one day, there was an innocent man that stepped in your place and died a death that you should have died so that you could live. You are Barabbas, and I am too. This is the gospel. And here's my thing. I respectfully and honestly, how could you not, knowing that you are Barabbas, that you deserve to die for your sin against a holy, perfect God, and yet that same God stepped in and died for you to pay your penalty and forgave you to have a relationship with you both now and for eternity? How could you not love and worship and adore and serve and give all that you have to that God, both now and for all of eternity? And how could you not do that? I don't serve Jesus because I was raised in church or I want to be a good moral person or no. I don't even serve Jesus because I believe the Bible is true. It is. I believe and serve Jesus because of this. Because I'm Barabbas. And I recognize what I deserve. And I don't blame anybody but me. But instead, he stepped in my place. So therefore, I give him all my money gladly. I give him all my relationships gladly. I give him my kids gladly. I give him my future, my dreams, my ambitions, my ups. I give it gladly to him because of what he did. That's the only proper response. I respectfully ask. We all serve something. Everybody serves something. Even atheists serve atheism. You have a worldview. Every person does. My question is, respectfully, does your worldview, does your God, quote unquote, offer this? Does Muhammad offer this? Did Muhammad come to die for his followers and forgive their sins and take their place and rise 3 days later? No. Did Buddha come to die for his followers and forgive their sins and live with him forever? No. Did the God of money that we Americans serve, did that God of money come and say, hey, in your darkest moment, I will take your place and I will die for you to forgive you so that we can have a relationship with ever? No. Does the God of politics, the Republicans or the Democrats, has any president or political leader ever come to you and said, you are guilty, I'll die in your place because I love you, you don't earn it, you don't deserve it, it's just my love for you, I will die for you to have a relationship with you? No, not one time. Only Christ died. Only Jesus took our place, and only Jesus rose again on the third day. That's why he is the only way to heaven. He's the only way to forgiveness. He's the only way to joy and hope and peace and purpose. I read this week about this trial and with Barabbas, and I loved it. I want to read it to you. It's not original to me. It says this: Barabbas' way only doles out more violence in a never-ending cycle. Jesus' way soaks up the injustice, evil, and oppression like the venom of a sting, and unleashes far more powerful force of love and forgiveness. When you live the way of I do it myself, it's a never-ending destructive cycle. When you live in the way of the crowd, they'll eat you alive. The way of a pilot, I kind of vacillate. I go back and forth. They'll destroy you. It's only the way of Christ. There's a painting that I want to show you. I showed it last year during our Good Friday service, and I must have talked about it a lot even after that because my wife gave it a print for my birthday to me, and I have it in my office, and I looked at it often, and I love this painting. This painting is called Behold the Man by Antonio Cesari, painted in 1877, an Italian artist, 1877. And Antonio had talked about what is unique about this painting. And what's unique about it, at least from him, was that every figure has their back turned to you. Now, I'm not, you may think I'm a nerd, and that's fine, but I actually enjoy classical art. I really do. I'm not a big fan of modern art. When you can take a banana and some duct tape and tape it to the wall and call it art, I call it toddler work. Okay, that's me. All right, I'm not a big modern art, but I like classical art. And one of the things that's unique about this painting is, again, most paintings, and you know this, whether you're into art or not, the person in the painting is facing you, right? Most of them, the Mona Lisa, all these other famous, they're looking at you through the canvas. This painting is absolutely unique because no one is looking at you, the audience, not one person. In fact, virtually everyone has their back to you, except for one woman over here, believed to be Pilate's wife. And when you read earlier, she had a dream the night before that God told her, you let Jesus go. And she told that to Pilate, and Pilate didn't do it. She's walking away in heartbreak and shame. But look at everybody else. Pilate is there, and Antonio, the artist, painted it so that the reason why people's backs are to you, instead most paintings would have us being part of the crowd looking up at the trial, right? But not this one. He said, I did that on purpose so that you would be part of the trial. As if maybe you're a Roman soldier onlooking, or a servant in the house of Pilate looking out. Or most likely, it's the view of Barabbas. And you could look it up closely. Through the railing here, you can see the faces of the crowd. Their eyes are wide with anger. Their mouth is slack and locked with anger, shouting rage. You see Pilate leaning over the rail, pointing at Jesus. And the question that Pilate asked the crowd is the same question I want to ask you. Verse 12, Pilate asked them, then what should I do with this man you call the King of the Jews? The single most important question you'll ever have is not how much money you make, where you went to school, or your political beliefs. The single most important question is a question Pilate is asking you today. As if you're Barabbas there. What will you do with Jesus? It's not what my parents believed. No, not good enough. I went to church a few times. That's not what we said. He didn't ask what your parents believed. He didn't ask what political beliefs you have. He didn't ask if you were a good moral person or you went to church again. He asked, what do you believe about Jesus? The most important question you'll ever have. Literally, eternity for you hangs on how you answer that question. Listen, don't you realize Pilate, the crowd, chose Barabbas? Pilate chose the crowd, but Jesus chose you through the cross. And I want to give you a choice right now, like that crowd had, and Pilate and Barabbas. Let's pray. Father, we thank you so much for the truth of your